a new Code Geass project is going to be announced on December 5th. And this video, I'm going to go over that, plus my theories for what we could have for a Code Geass Series 3, also known as R3. So, let me catch you up to speed. Last week, a new project was announced for Code Geass, and they were going to unveil it on December 5th. If you want to know where, it's going to be on YouTube, and I'll of course link this in the description below. See, up until now, there's been this thing called the 10-year plan of Code Geass, and it was announced after Lelouch of the Resurrection. And up to this point, we don't really know much about it, except the fact that the Resurrection film was the first part of it. And of course, that film was actually the sequel to 3 recap/alternative universe films that came out between 2017 and now. No one knows for certain what this project is going to be. It could be an OVA series that could either take pre-existing manga and turn into an anime. It could take a pre-existing story like Akito the Exile and do a sequel to that. It could be another film project. It could be another video game. Not another video game, but a video game. Or what I think it's going to be, which is another season of Code Geass, which is going to continue from Lelouch of the Resurrection. Now, one of the reasons why I think this is going to be a sequel to Lelouch of the Resurrection is because the ending of that film kind of implied that there was more for Lelouch to do. And from a fanbase point of view, we still have some unanswered questions in the series that I feel like a new one could unveil. For example, what is C2's name? Where does Geass come from? Where did V2 get his Geass from? So now, with that in mind, I want to go over my theories for how we go from the latest film to this new series. Because keep in mind, even with the new film, the story of R2 wrapped things up really nicely, right? There's world peace, there's no conflict, so how could there be a brand new story? So I'm going to talk about that next. But first, I want to go over my ideas about where Geass came from, because knowing that will give context to what the new series is going to be about. So what I'm going to go through now is a brief explanation for where I think Geass came from. I have way more ideas than this, and this is the abbreviated version, so there might still be some things that don't make any sense. If you guys want me to talk further into this, I would be happy to do so. But let's start with the abbreviated version. So basically, I believe that when the universe was first created, so was Geass. Now, many people look at the Jupiter part of Seas World and say that's not actually Jupiter, it's more of a symbolic metaphor for the idea that like the eye of Jupiter and Geass comes from the eye, and the living and the dead are kind of flowing in and out. But I'm going to say, for my interpretation, that actually Geass did form on Jupiter by one being. Now, from Akito the Exiled, we learned that there's a being called the Collective Consciousness, or the Guardian of the Universe, and this woman, I guess, was talking to Layla about Geass, and we learned a lot of things from the conversation. Here they are. She says that humanity should have gone extinct, which indicates to me that maybe without Geass, humanity never would have survived. She also talks about humanity in like a way that implies that maybe other species of creatures have also received Geass power, possibly even aliens. So that opens up a lot of ideas. And the bigger one for me is that there are conscious beings that run this universe. So with all that in mind, it is very possible that when the universe was first formed, there was one being who had one code and one Geass. Now this Geass power, in my opinion, was an accumulation of all Geass powers we've ever seen in the series up until now. So this being then used the one Geass power at the time to create what we know as Seas World. And Seas World at the time was in the same state that Charles wanted it to be at the end of R2, where all living things and all things that have died are together, essentially. So nothing is really happening. There's no future, past, or present. It's just it's one entire thing. So the being decided to separate out and actually have living beings spread around the universe, again, using the Geass power. Now, to keep life going, this is again my theory, being had to use his own power to separate himself into different versions. So he goes from like one major being, and now he's like 20, 30, or however many that he created of himself. And the purpose of this was to go to all the different planets where living things live to spread Geass power so those beings would not go extinct. When the being did that, it split up Seas World into multiple variations. So there's one per planet, or at least one per where living things live. So in the original series, the Seas World that Charles was trying to mess with was just the one on Earth. There are other ones based on different planets where living beings live. Now, each of the beings who came from the original one, right? Remember, he took himself, he separated them out to different individuals. Each of these people had a code and a Geass, and they gave it out to those who were worthy. Because he split himself up into different individuals, they couldn't all have the same Geass anymore. It got broken up into smaller pieces. This is how the different Geass powers formed, because the separations of the main being took parts of the Geass wherever they went. That's how this happened. Now, I believe there's a certain amount of codes that were sent to each planet. Now, the number is arbitrary, but for sake of argument, I'm going to say there's 5. So I believe that Earth only has 5 codes, just like any other planet has living beings. We know that Lelouch has the code that was originally Charles, that also came from V2. C2 has a code, and Shamna has a code, which got broken up into different fragments around the planet, which is what C2 and Lelouch are looking for at the end of Lelouch of the Resurrection. So in summary, there was one being that first had the code and the Geass that made C's world, that then separated himself out into different versions of the same being to spread Geass throughout the whole galaxy, solar system, universe, however why they want to expand this, so life would not go extinct. And by doing that, each individual Geass power was formed, and every single planet got us a certain amount of codes. Earth, I believe, has 5, and that's kind of where we're at right now in terms of getting to R3. So the next question comes, how does this have anything to do with R3? Well, let's look back at R2 first to answer that question. So we know that at the end of R2 that peace was essentially made throughout the world, right? Lelouch was the greatest evil. He died at the hands of Suzaku. Well, now he's resurrected, but at the time he died at the hands of Suzaku, and now things are at peace. So the question becomes, what is the new threat, right? It can't come from the planet anymore, unless you want to talk about death or maybe a plague or possibly civil unrest, but that's not really a big enough conflict for a story. So we have to look into space, aliens, right? And that's why I was talking about the idea of Geass being on other planets and with other species. And if you look at the idea that the codes used to combine into one, or they were originally part of one being, it is reasonable to believe that maybe certain alien species on other planets want to collect these codes to combine them back to create stronger Geass abilities that could in fact reshape the world. And that's what the conflict is going to be in R3. It's going to be a battle between Earth fighting against other planets for dominance with the codes. Now Lelouch and C2 are probably going to be fighting to get rid of Geass altogether, as they've been doing since R2, if you think about it, right? It took out the Geass Order because no one should have to bear the burden or the sin of Geass except for Lelouch and C2, and they're kind of doing that now by getting rid of the codes from people at the end of the film. They do say, actually not they do, Lelouch says like if they're worthy enough they can have the power, but I doubt most people are. So now some of you are probably wondering, how is this going to work in space? Well, we know from Akito the Exile there was something called Apollo's Chariot, which allowed the W0 team to be sent into space. Now granted it was a rocket ship, but they were allowed to be sent to space to do certain covert operations. Now I believe with the powers of, Loy's intelligence and Raksha's intelligence, plus an unlimited budget, they could probably find a way to get something like the Avalon to travel in space, to get the Nightmare Frames to be able to, work in space. And so you could have kind of like a pseudo-space opera story, something like Macross or Gundam, where you have like Lelouch potentially leading a ship, Schneizel could lead a ship. I don't know, that's details they would have to work out, and what you would have was a series of battles in space, or possibly even planet invasions between the Earth forces and the alien forces. And again, I think this has to be the direction we go because everything else has been settled. That's why some people don't even want a new series, which, by the way, is a very reasonable stance to take, and I completely understand that. But if we are going to have one, it'd have to be between the Earth forces against alien forces that want to capture all the codes to, again, unite them all. So now that the plot has kind of been revealed, let's go through other key things to keep in mind going forward. Number one, Layla and Akito are still alive in this universe, and because Lelouch and C2 are collecting fragments of Geass, there's a good chance that two of them might actually meet up, especially since we know that Layla's contract has not been fulfilled yet. In fact, we don't even know what the contract is that Layla agreed to when she used her powers in the end of Akito the Exile. Okay, number two, how many years this takes place after the recent film? I'm thinking 5 years, because after 5 years, that kind of gives you enough time to develop the technology to get us into space. It's enough time for characters to kind of gotten older, but they're not too old, right? Everyone's kind of in their early 20s. I think 10 years is too much, which is when the picture drama takes place for the latest film. The third point I like to make is that if code and Geass powers can be combined, because that's how they originally were in my interpretation of how things initially started, then you could have situations where aliens, and possibly even Lelouch and C2 and other Geass users could combine their powers together to form a newer and stronger ability. That'd be kind of interesting and a new dynamic going forward in the universe. And I'm also curious to see, with different alien races, what Geass powers they develop and what new Nightmare Frames they use. Or do they use something completely different? So that wraps up my discussion on a potential new series we could get with the announcement on December 5th. I'm going to do a new video after that announcement that's going to follow up on anything that was revealed during that video. So stay tuned for that. If you want more Code Geass content and don't want to wait for videos, I do have a blog called MyMiaChops.com where I have plenty of articles on different anime topics. including is Code Geass. I'll leave a description of that below. If you want to keep track of what I'm doing, I'll leave all my social media stuff below, including my Reddit and Facebook, where I'm constantly uploading stuff on both. And Reddit, I'm very active, so that's a really good place to have any kind of conversations with me, anything related to Code Geass. In addition, I have an email list that you can subscribe to, and when you do, you get a free copy of my anime guide that goes through all the different anime on every single streaming service available. I'm constantly updating this and adding more anime and more streaming services, and possibly even more ways to find stuff. Currently, it lists it by sub versus dub, if you have to pay for it, if it's exclusive to that platform, and tons of other information just like that in this guide. You'll get that by subscribing to my email list. On the email list itself, you get exclusive access to content that may not make it to the blog or YouTube, or won't be on it for a long time. I like to share thoughts about different anime, not just the main ones I talk about on the blog or this channel, but just, things I'm thinking about as I watch certain shows, because I watch a lot of anime, and let's face it, I'll probably never talk about most of it on this channel or my blog itself. And with that out of the way, I now turn the conversation to you. What do you think is going to be the announcement on December 5th for Code Geass? Do you like the ideas I was talking about in R3? Did you want me to talk more into that? Please let me know in the comment section below. If you liked the video, please like it and share it, and I will speak to you next time.